So welcome. Welcome to Game Foundation, develop efficiently with pre-built common systems. And today, well, first of all, I'm Shanti. I'm Director Engineering in Montreal. I've been working on Game Foundation for 6 months, and we're currently today in a state where we can start sharing the state we're at, what we think we're doing, and where we think we're headed. And I'll let Antoine.
So I'm Antoine, one of the tech lead working on Game Foundation for now a couple of months, I guess. I'm in Unity for 3 months, so I'm still a baby in this company. And I'm pretty excited to show what we have today with Game Foundation and share it with you.
Cool. Okay. So today we'll just do a quick mission of the team. So just to explain what our goals are, what our internal goals are. Then we'll outline the problem that we are trying to solve as we see it, and hopefully in the Q&A you can give us feedback on our vision of how we solve this. And of course the solution we're proposing to address some of those issues. Then we have a live demo of the current state and a bit of the next state. It's an in-between of the demo. And we'll talk about what's next. So the mission that we have in the team is to help developers turn their game into it. And that's the monetization group. So it sounds kind of weird, but game developers don't make a business out of creating a game. They make a business out of a game that has success. So I think this is subtly different, and that's how we think about approaching the problem of building games. How can we make the developer successful? And here's a quote to kick things off from somebody actually in the San Francisco office who joined in March. So every day matters. I regret that I spent many of those days building and rebuilding things like inventory, currency management, virtual stores, instead of working on the experiences that I wanted to create. So what he's expressing there is there's a lot of table stakes and repetition in game productions. And in some domains, we fixed that, for the rendering, for example. And some domains, we haven't fixed it. And we think there is a need. So we're not that much, so let's do a show of hands to kind of get a feel for something. Who here has worked on a game that has shipped and contained an inventory for the player or some of the NPCs? Might or might not have had a UI. So show of hands, who's worked on a game with an inventory? So quite a few. Who's worked on a game with currencies? Money, virtual currencies, real and fake monies. Who's worked on a game with cloud save? Yeah, quite a few still. So looking around, you can quickly see that despite that we're doing things individually, there's actually quite a bit of commonalities that are unsolved currently. So we keep rebuilding the same systems in different companies, multiple times in the same company. And it might be time to do something about it. So I'll state the problem as I see it, and then in the Q&A you can come after and correct us. But making common systems means that they're reusable. So as you're making a game, it's actually pretty difficult to ship a game, and as a byproduct, to end up with something that you can cleanly reuse after. It happens, but when you've got the choice between investing in your product and potentially the lifeblood of your company, and making something for your next product, which might or might not happen if you miss this one, usually you go all in and you try to make a success of what you're doing right now. So it's a rational choice, but it prevents building reuse. So medium-sized company end up creating teams that do this inside companies, and they create reusable systems. And those teams take a lot of discussions to fund, and it's still hard to create good systems inside a company that can be reused production after production. And we're not talking about the sexiest of systems. We're talking about systems that if you don't have, you can't show off. If you don't have a store, if you don't have an inventory, if you can't save on the cloud, it's not going to make your game a hit if you have one of those, but you need it to even be at the table, to be playing the game. And you need to build those and their time sinks. So we think that's a problem, and it's a high cost. And also, as you build those systems, you end up with one that you can reuse, and then a second one. But they don't quite work together. And then you get one from the store, and it kind of works, but it's way too big, or it's way too small. And you end up spending time retrofitting and getting systems to work together. And at some point, you're like, maybe I should just rewrite all of it for this game, instead of playing at making systems that don't quite fit together, that I didn't try, that are badly documented, fit together, right? And that happens. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. So that's the lack of interoperability and the standards. If I contrast this with rendering, if you make a shader, you know where it's going to work and where it won't work, right? You can expect interoperability and standards. Also, developer-centric workflows. So a developer is happy with Notepad, that's a workflow. Better is an actual code editor. But often systems have varying level of workflows, and those workflows have varying level of error checking, ease of use, and interoperability again. One is designed in a specific way, the other is completely separate, and they don't quite talk to each other before a developer comes in and fixes the situation, if you're cherry picking from the asset store or cherry picking third parties or that type of stuff. So it becomes difficult to assemble something that makes sense and it is robust. So that's how we see the ecosystem problem. The solution, as we propose, is to provide pre-built common game systems in flexible and fully extensible modules so that you can focus on building unique gameplay. So that's super ambitious. There's literally hundreds of modules that one could go and build. From the ones on the right there, inventory, game economy, player save, player stats, currency, wallet, store management. But you could go into leaderboards, social, all kinds of systems need to be built. So for this to work at scale, we need standards, and we need those modules to be independent. So we need to be able to have things that work together in a way that we can predict and that we can communicate amongst different companies and teams how things should work together. So for example, standardized capabilities and interoperability. You probably, I was talking with somebody this morning, he was saying he had 3 analytics systems in the current project he had. Not even like surprising, it's just, that happens. You might have none. You might have a homemade one, plus a third party, plus Unity, and you hop from dashboard to dashboard. And then you add another system which doesn't have analytics, but you need analytics in it, and hopefully with the analytics solution that you've put together. So we want to propose that there is a connector, that is an analytics connector, and that if you implement this interface, and we'll implement a few, you can basically redirect and configure where the analytics for all the Game Foundation approved systems is sent. So Game Foundation system sends analytics to the analytics connector, and you create an adapter to send it wherever you want. Nowhere, everywhere, it's your choice. Unity, first party, or third party, or your own homemade solution. So we want to allow that level of interoperability. Same thing with game configuration. If you've ever run an A/B test, everybody offers a solution. There's about a dozen out there. You might have one, you might have two. If you have a couple reusable systems, you might actually have multiple solutions in the same game. So what we want is for Game Foundation to all use those modules that are approved, to all use the same configuration adapter and experimentation backend. So then when you decide to unify to one experimentation solution, so you have only one dashboard and login to worry about, well, you can change that across the board in one place. So this is kind of those plugs here that they have in Denmark and in Europe, and the one in America. It's standards. It says if I have something that needs electricity, that's how I'm going to plug it in the wall. So I don't need to worry hopping from house to house how I'm going to plug my appliances in, right? So standards work. They're on your computer. There's cables over there. There's what's at the back of a TV. So we want to basically standardize how we talk about backend systems. And backend systems, there's quite a few. Cloud save. How do I put my data in a cloud? How can different modules put their data in the same place? Can that data be sent to a different place? If I move from PlayFab to GameSpark, can I just have my data work in both and just configure in one place so everything moves? Those are the type of problems that we'd like to solve with Game Foundation. So common gameplay systems today, you've got your basic solve problems layer. Game engines have solved rendering, have solved physics. Rarely will a company ever say, for this game, I'm going to build a brand new, complete physics engine with real simulations. Right? You'd better off just biting the bullet, paying for a buck, and saving yourself a ton of risk. You'll sometimes do a custom solution, and that's fine. But on the average, you'll use a custom, out-of-the-box solution for rendering. It's been standardized. It's no longer that every game has its renderer. I've done a couple different renderers in 2 sequential projects in the same company in the 2000s. So that's no longer happens, right? Most companies use rendering that's off the shelf. So we think that inventory, virtual goods, progression, persistence, cloud data, player save, player progression are things that are at that level. They're not that surprising or new enough to justify rebuilding them all the time. And they don't make your title special or make it a hit. They're basically, you need them to basically be in the game. So we hope to get to a point where Game Foundation, the ecosystem, the team will not build everything, but we hope the ecosystem will provide pieces that actually work together, and where the asset store, third parties, and your in-house team, and Unity's team can build pieces that you can assemble into a fully working solution faster, at lower cost. And then you can configure, and you know what to expect of their capabilities, right? If you want to send all of those analytics to one place, and you've got a Unity Game Foundation module, your own, and a third party, well, you know how to configure the analytics, and they all go in the right place immediately. So that's what we're proposing as a solution. So we want to save time and allow you to make better games. So that's the vision. We're going to try to make it a little more concrete with this use case. Typical scenario. This is Delta DNA, by the way. As you may know, the company got acquired by Unity last week. So this weekend, we created a Delta DNA adapter for Game Foundation. And we sent the analytics of the demo there. But this is fake data. We had scripts and data. We don't have that many users in the demo. That was basically 3 of us, and we thought the funnel didn't look fun enough, so this is a picture. But we did connect the analytics, and we did connect the configuration adapter. So that means that Delta DNA, since this weekend, is now in our demo of Game Foundation, the provider of game configuration data, which means I can segment, A/B test, I can feed data, I can do campaigns where for some amount of time the data will be different for the game configuration, and I can get the analytics and analyze what's going on. So now we'll move to just trying to solve that problem, that simple problem of I have level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4, and then at level 5, the game people are just leaving. So if you're talking business, you're going to say I have a retention problem and I have a monetization problem, but this is not a problem that I'm suggesting we fix with a push notification. We're saying in Game Foundation that a problem like this is fixed by making the game better, fundamentally. You won't get 10x from a push notification to have a churned user return. You'll get 10x by fixing your gameplay. So that's where we're operating. Game Foundation wants to operate at the gameplay level. So we're going to go in level 5, and Antoine will basically fix it for us so that we can have monetization and revenues go back up.
So, let's see this one.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So the today demo is built on top of Creator Kit, beginner's code package. It's made by Unity technology, and it's available in the asset store for free. What we made with this demo is replacing the game-specific inventory system by the one provided by Game Foundation, because that's the module that we showcase today.
So Unity built 2 inventory systems in this first quarter.
Yeah, we have too much money. So let's play the game. So I have my character, and I will try to face some enemies.
Doesn't seem to be going well for you.
Yeah, way too peaceful.
I think you're getting hurt, and you don't seem to have a weapon.
Yeah, I don't have any weapon in my slot, either in the inventory. So that's something that we should fix. Let's heal just to find another solution.
That's terrible. It's not healing you almost.
Yeah, it's not.
So that may
It's not
explain our
pretty
retention numbers that are plummeting at level 5. Day 7 retention is down. You might wonder all kinds of things, but first look at your gameplay. It might just be bad.
So let's stop the game and try to fix those two problems. So I can go to Windows, Game Foundation, and Inventories first. And this is the main panel for inventory system in Game Foundation. We have 3 tabs: the inventory items, the inventory, and the categories. Quickly, categories are just meant to be used in inventories to filter out content in stores or in the user inventory. Let's say I want just my weapon to be displayed. I will use a category. But let's focus on inventories first. As we said, in my inventory, I don't have any weapon. So that's something I can fix here.
At the start of the game, you mean?
Yeah.
The player starts the game without a weapon, so how could we fix that?
Okay, so here we can see I have a couple of inventories. I will talk about the main, wallet, and store. The main inventory is the one that I use for my character. As I can see, I just have the health potion and the strength potion, and no weapon inside. The wallet is a very specific inventory for currencies. So all the currencies that I can collect in the game end up in this inventory.
Can I create new currencies?
Of course, like dozens if you want. We're not limited. And the store inventory is obviously the inventory that the store uses to provide offers that I can buy during the game. There's somewhere in the level a store in which I can buy some new stuff. So let's go back to the main inventory and let's add the basic weapon in it. So it's the rake that I can just add by just clicking Add to Default Inventory. And let's say I just want one because I just have 2 hands anyway. So this part, I guess, is fixed. The other is the potion, right?
Yeah, let's raise the heal amount on those potions. That seems completely unbalanced.
So to modify items, it's not in inventories, it's in inventory items. So we have on the left side the whole list of the item available in my game, and we'll focus on the health potion, which is the one I try to fix. To give a little bit more context and detail about items, those are, they look like prefabs in game object because they are composed of detail, which are components of item. Those are not prefabs or game object. Those are just data. It's more data-oriented structure. There's a benefit in doing that. When you have a team of like 15 different developers, artists, and designers, you don't want everyone to work on the same assets. If you work on Perforce on Git, you don't want to have conflicts to resolve. So it's a good practice to extract the data that we can play with in different structure, the same way you would do with scriptable object. This system is built on top of scriptable object, by the way. So the good thing is not to put your values in prefabs in game object or your scenes. So back to the structure of those items. I have detailed definitions here. So that means the list here is the list of templates of item. Those are not the instances. If I want to create a new potion in my game, I will instantiate this potion from a definition here.
So this is like a prefab, but not a prefab,
yes,
and
it's just
data-oriented,
pure
but
data.
not dots.
Yeah,
I'm confused.
Not yet. I guess we'll
That
switch to dots in some ways.
Okay.
So details. Details are like components, as I said, and we have some built-in ones. For example, the icon details. It's a pretty simple one, but we guess that you will need somehow an icon to display in your inventories, which is most of the time a UI panel. So because this is something that we need, we provide it as a built-in detail. But there's also some custom structure that you need specifically for your game, and that's the example of the health effect here, which control the percentage amount which is the efficiency of my potion. And I see that it's 5%, it's pretty low, so let's make it 5 times better. 5 by 5, okay, so my potion is fixed, my main inventory is fixed, so I can go back to the game and try it.
Yeah, let's try to see if we can complete the level now. Maybe we fixed everything.
So I see that I have a rake now in my hands. So let's take a look on the inventory. My rake is in the weapon slot, perfect, and I have some potions. Let's fight some enemies just to lose some health, so we can try the potion. We have a couple more enemies somewhere further in this.
So I see the UI of the money going up. So is Game Foundation providing that UI, or is Game Foundation providing the inventory which sends events to a UI prefab?
Yeah, it's event-based. Yeah.
Okay, but the UI prefab is not part of Game Foundation.
No. We don't. It's not part of this this library. So I'm pretty injured, so I will try my potion, and that's now way better than before.
Could we buy more if we're gonna keep fighting?
Yeah, the boss is next to me, so I will buy some. Let's go back. This is the store.
It's pretty empty.
Let's open the inventory at the same time, so I can. This is basically transferring items from an inventory to another.
Yep.
With just a simple call of an API.
So the looting as well, the money on the ground is kind of the same thing. You could use inventories for a lot of things. You could have NPCs have inventory, you could have the ground, the level have inventories. So there's really no specific binding to something that you see on screen that is a UI.
So let's face the boss, just to finish the level, make sure everything happens. He's pretty strong.
Yeah, he's going to kill you if you hit it. Okay. Yeah, that's it. He's way too strong.
Yeah.
So we've got another problem. The gameplay is way too hard, so probably leading to drop-off in retention. So we need to fix that.
Yeah. I see 2 problems here. Is that the boss is way too strong, so 2 hits and I'm dead. And my rake is not that powerful, so I should either modify my rake or build a new one.
So let's make a super rake or something like a legendary rake.
Let's say legendary. Yes, okay, so back to my inventory panel, and I go to my inventory items, and I will create a brand new rake. So it's based on the structure of the rake, because it's the same kind of weapon with different tuning. So I at least need the weapon detail and the icon detail. So let's hit the plus button. Let's name it Legendary Rake. This expression just works for this game, right? And I had 2 detail definitions. So the weapon details and the icon detail. So this is basically filling the detail the same way I will fill the components for a game object. So let's put some description for the UI to be able to display it. I will attach my prefab so I can have some 3D objects to put in the ends of my character. So I have my rake prefab here. This is a weapon, so I have to put it in the weapon slot. Those are the properties for my rake. So let's go back to the basic one. These are useless, and I have speed 1, minimum, maximum damage 3 to 5, and the range is 3. So I propose that we don't change the range. The speed we can make twice as fast.
Yeah, and what about cooldown and damage? Let's double damage.
Double damage, so it's 6 to 10.
The DPS.
Okay. So my weapon is pretty much configured. I still need an icon, so I will use this one with the green outline. So then I can display it in some UI. So my item is done with all the data. I can go back to the inventory and add it to my main inventory.
Why don't we put it in the store?
Yeah, that's a good idea. It could create some challenge, so we can have to go to the store to have a better weapon. So face enemy or fly it. So go to the store, and I will add the legendary rake the same way I added the rake in the main inventory. Let's add just one rake, so I just have one to sell. So my legendary rake is created. It's added to the store. I have enough money for that because, no, I didn't put a price on it. So I just add a new detail.
You start with 60, about 50, something like that?
Yeah, let's say 50 because I just want this demo to go quick, so I don't want to loot money to be able to buy it. Pretty boring. Okay, let's go back to the game now. So let's run to the store. Try not to die. Okay. So this is the UI of my store. I can see that I have my potions, strength potion, and the legendary rake that I built. I see my definition here. I had the question this morning from one of you guys, how to localize those things. Because description is just a string, you can put any key you want. The way you consume this description is up to you. So I will buy it and assign it as my weapon. So I see that my visual changed for the prefab that I chose.
Okay, let's go fight.
Now I guess it's, sorry, I don't want to buy anything anymore. So this weapon is way more efficient.
And let's go kill the boss.
Okay, I just want to restore first, just to make sure. Okay, so we should try to kill him. Yeah, he's still way too strong, I guess. Okay, it's
well,
still too ill.
You could have healed or dodged, right? So who's to say that that you're bad or you're good? What will players think?
A little bit
right?
of both, I guess.
Exactly. So we need to make sure that we can maybe change those values depending on what analytics tells us. Because this could be on the bubble. We don't want to do this on the first try so that the boss is too easy. So what about we configure the values remotely?
Okay.
so
Before
then
remotely,
we'll be able
perhaps
to
you
react.
can switch to the game item panel, which controls everything that is not meant to be added to an inventory. So that's a way to link a definition to every single prefab or game object that you have in your game without even touching your prefab for the same reason than before. So here I have my game item. It works the same way as inventory because I have detailed definitions and I can add some more. Yes. This is pretty specific to my game because it exposes the health, strength, and defense and a couple of more stats of my boss. So the strength is pretty high, 20, and the health is pretty low. So what kind of value do you want to have now?
So we'll say 120 and maybe change the damage, but we should keep that remotely. So you should enable remote configuration so we can actually do this from the server. So
there's a solution for that because this is more static data that is stored inside your project. But if I don't know which value I want to put in my properties, I can ask an external source to provide those values. To do that, we can enable this checkbox. It exposes an ID. This ID is provided to the external source, no matter which source it is, to get the value back. So here we linked Delta DNA, obviously. So the idea is to get the configuration from Delta DNA that contains this ID and an attached value, and play with this value instead of the one that is static to my game foundation system.
So then we'll pull the values when the game starts, and we'll pull the values via the configurator adapter when the game starts.
So I switched to the Delta DNA dashboard, and I can see that I have 3 different values here: my character, bossy enemy, health, and his weapon, min and max damage. Cool.
Let's change the damage and go and kill that boss.
Yeah. So basically, the value of the weapon was here, the cactus smash, and the values was pretty high, 10 to 15. So if I use those values instead, I should use the remote value. So I can then create analytics and analyze the effect of those values.
Okay. So if I'm using a tool like Delta, I could also do an A/B test. I could do special time, change the values over time. I could do all kinds of things, right? Because that value is now dynamic. Each new PlayStation, any values that's remote is bound. So you don't need to reship your game. You can just stay there. So that's pretty standard live-ops strategies, but we want them built in. Because you don't want to realize late that you want to configure something. You want to be able to have everything configurable, and then when you need it, to actually start pushing values that matter.
So we have 3 values remotely configured: the min and max damage of the weapon, and the health of the boss. So in this demo, it's pretty obvious to see the health of the boss because we can just click the game object. It's less obvious for the weapon, but we'll see if it works just with the health.
Let's go fight him.
Because I'm a bit lazy, I will just click on the boss prefab, and I see that my health is 120, according to Delta DNA. So I can assume that the weapon is configured the same way.
So the network actually works. So that's cool.
Yeah, that's what I checked before starting the demo. So let's try to kill the boss now.
Let's go kill that boss. It feels like we're due.
I need to get rid of the minions before. That's guarding. Let's buy some potion, because I'm pretty bad at that game.
No pressure, right? If you fail this, about 50 people will know.
So now it's
way longer.
weaker,
yeah.
But the fight is longer, a bit more epic. But I should have time to heal. Yeah, the game pauses. That's cheating.
I don't think.
I guess I will. Yeah, I think I will die in a way.
Come on. So I guess we need to A/B test some more. Hopefully retention goes up a little from the initial state of where we started. And that will be kind of a typical game day, right? A game designer actually trying to figure out what's going on in the game, why things are not going well, and then testing and using his or her favorite tool to kind of try to fix the situation. So we think that there's benefits in the community and Unity providing systems that work together, that are standard. And it's to get started faster. You're prototyping. You don't need the best inventory in the world. You just need to make that first playable to know if you've got a game and a project. You don't want to be building from scratch things that you could be doing easily, right? So you get started faster. And then you've got designer workflows that are tested. They're solid. You don't need to build them to prove your gameplay or to get to your first playable. You just get off and running. You're off and running right away. And then standardized backend connectors allow you to go from this prototype stage to then live ops and production and stay robustly in control of what's going on in the game. So you can transition to having full-scale soft launch and full-scale launch on your game and still be able to figure out what's going on and react in real time as you invest. So you want to measure, you want to analyze, and then you want to engage or configure remotely. Both of them. And we believe that should be any game systems built today should support that out of the box. And if you don't need any of those capabilities, you should be able to configure them off. So if you don't want to configure anything remotely, don't set up any tool to do that. If you don't want any analytics, don't do that. But if you want to, you should be able to decide to do that late and not have to rewrite a bunch of game systems. So today in the public package, there's common systems that you saw there, but none of the configuration adapters. So it's still preview, early preview. So we've got a client-side solution, and the adapters that you saw there are in development. So those will be landing in the next iteration. So we want Cloud Safe to be landing. We want Analytics adapter to be landing. And we want configuration and experimentation to land at the same time. So that you can basically have a system where most of what we did during the demo, you should be able to do remotely. So that, we think, really helps the capabilities. So if you have that store, you add the item remotely. You remove it remotely. Maybe it's too powerful. You change the price remotely. That should be a decision that you take as late and as efficiently in your production as possible. And of course, we'll add the store system. We're working on a store. This one is more of an inventory store. It's not a store where there's consumption of virtual currencies or hard currencies. So if we connect this to the IAP SDK or any type of virtual currency system, then we want a real store. This was kind of an NPC store based on the inventory system. The next step is to go full stack. Hopefully, people start making common systems that work within the Game Foundation philosophy, that can talk together, get configured together, and follow a minimum baseline of what a Game Foundation system needs to be for it to be considered Game Foundation. And of course, we just bought an analytics backend as a company. You can use your own. Gameplay configuration backend, Delta DNA as well, or you can use your own. I've heard about 6 different types of backend just in this Unite, and we're on day 1. So Cloud Save backend, I know there's a bunch of options out there. Configure the one you love best. Delta DNA is about 20 lines of code to configure into Game Foundation. And if you change your mind, you've got 20 lines of code to change, and everything changes. And of course, server authoritative support. So if I want to be, it's Halloween, I want to be gifting candies in players' inventories just for showing up, then I can go from server, right in the Cloud Save, and have the game react in the appropriate manner. So that means there's an authority. The authority can be client-side or remote, and we're looking at solving that. So we think we've got a good approach on actually enabling this. So you have an inventory, you just drag and drop it in, and later on, you want to be cloud authoritative because you don't want cheating, or you want to be able to change your server code, then you can keep the same solution and just carry on. You don't have to just rip it out and put something new in. So that's our vision. Our vision is that you drag and drop during prototyping phase, and those systems can carry you through to production and actually to scaling without having to rethink most of your architecture. Thank you. That's about it. We're 7 minutes early. If you have questions, feedback, we'll take it out. Thank you. For questions, you can go to the mic or raise your hand or just walk out on stage and ask us.
Just so you know, we have the very same project in the kiosk of Game Foundation. The adapter is a little bit different because it's not Delta DNA, it's remote config, which is another kiosk here. And we have the pretty same experience. So if you have a very specific question for me, or you want to share your experience about those kind of system, I will be there from 4 to 5.
Oh, there's a question, I guess.
Hello. Thank you for this great presentation. And one question about data validation. When somebody is setting up the inventory, do you have some validation of the input he's adding to details? If the value is, I don't know, negative, positive, if he's missing something, do you have some sort of validation?
So we don't validate schema because game items could be of any sort that the game will do. And those are custom inspectors. So the custom inspector, if you have an item detail that needs validation, just like a component, it should do the validation in the UI. And any item that requires validation should do that. So I don't believe we have any in the demo that require or as validation, do we?
Not really, but you would do the validation the same way that you do in components.
Yes. So we'd want the UI to refuse any invalid data for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Oh.
Hi. Will this have an integration with ECS?
So good question. ECS is a preview package. Mm-hmm. So we want to be out of preview before ECS is out of preview. So that will mean we can't depend on a preview package. But we've got very strong alignment in terms of orientation, structs, and everything. So there is an ECS implementation that will be back, that will be implementing this basically. So some of the top-level APIs, you don't need ACS to talk to, but the implementation and ECS compatibility will be in the data layer.
And another one, how this serialize in a way, I can save my inventory in a save file and then load it again?
So there's two things, right? There's the definitions that are saved in the project, and then there's the live state data, which you may serialize anywhere, including you might save the current inventory in the cloud state, or the player state, we call it, which might be or not in the cloud. Currently, the player state is local, but that's easy to move off.
Perhaps I can give you a little bit more information about this. It was not that showcaseable, but we have the persistence layer that you can link to the inventory system. So it's just an interface that gets calls. So if you want to build your own cloud save system, you just have to implement an interface and initialize the inventory system with it. So it comes built in with a local save, but it's very easy to build some server one.
Yep. Maybe here?
Do you have any idea when the version with the adapters is going to drop, and when you're trying to come out of preview?
Good question. I think we will come out of preview when the version with the adapter drops. I would expect that's probably within 6 months. We've got it working, but from working to it works for you, and we don't feel ashamed when you put it in a production. That's kind of we need the bandwidth to absorb the feedback and to make sure it works in a way we can put Unity's name behind the verified. But yes, the team would like it to be yesterday, to be honest. We think this is useful, and we see a path to implementing the adapters.
Hi, how are you? How we developers can integrate new code that you release? For example, of the packages, of the inventory package, of your code, core code.
Could you repeat the beginning of the question, please?
How do we, developers, integrate new code you released of your core code?
Okay, good question. So currently it's one package. We're not super happy with that because we want developers to be able to select which package they want and not drag in anything. If you want only an inventory system, you shouldn't get a store as well,
yes,
kind of as a bonus to bloat up your game. So we want to separate it. That's the first thing. The second thing is we would expect that APIs will be compatible so that basically once we get out a preview, any code updates will be API compatible and should just update from the package manager. So we will have the same promise as Core Unity.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hi.
Yep.
So let's say you have a huge amount of item you need to maintain. Do you intend to provide some sort of tool to, let's say these items shares a lot of properties together and we need to change those. Do you intend to provide tools to, let's say, multi-edit items or to provide some sort of inheritance?
So that's an interesting thing. What you've seen right now is very manual. For every property in the definition, you need to kind of bind it with a string. And you go kind of one at a time. When really in game production, often that comes from a spreadsheet, right? And that gets funneled through. So the game design team in Helsinki is working on rationalizing how you handle game design data. So we want game configuration. Right now has no UI itself. But we think that the game configuration itself should be something that deserves a UI and a way to go in and quickly assign multiple things to us. For example, you want all level 1 weapons to start with the base or damage quickly and then override that with something else or that type of operation. But we're not there yet. So that will be iteratively on top of the basic fact that we want every definition value to be configurable, be it A/B testing, remote configuration, or even game tuning, for example, machine learning.
Thanks.
We just have 1 minute left.
Oh, okay. So sure, I'll try to go fast.
A question about the definitions, the remote definitions. Is there any chance to have a communication with the API inside Unity editor?
So that's interesting. Since we're talking about possibly multiple backends, then we don't want to be responsible for supporting that. So what I think right now, and it's highly speculative, is that through the current feedback and the next iteration, I think this will go in two places. You want to configure your game state data, what gets saved and where, and you want to configure your game design data. So that will be, how do we provide tools around game design data that third-party providers, such as Delta DNA or such, could provide hooks in there so that you can easily, let's say, decide, do you want to go to development Delta DNA or live or staging tree? Where do you pull the value from? How that workflow goes? We think that it's on game design data around that, and that the third party should be able to have a say in how that works. So the adapter providers, we hope, will come in and fill that out. But that's later next year. We're not at the stage where we've proven enough of the base things to be there.
And another question, you said that you would be happier if they are separate in different packages. For example, one package for the inventory, another for the play stats. How do you think the communication between them is going to be?
So, for example,
through events, I think.
Yeah, so we think each module needs to implement an interface. So we've talked about the adapter interface, but if we have a store, we think there's a few basic things that a store implementation should have, and that should be separate. So there's a per package kind of contract that a package that is standard needs to uphold. And maybe if you want your store special store package to implement that contract, or you modify the existing one, or however, then there's still a contract for other packages to depend on. And we think that's important. Now to the discovery, if you go in Package Manager and there's 30 Game Foundation package and they're all listed separately, that's going to be a mess. So we're wondering how we discover and configure, let's say, 6 packages, then you only need 3 of, right? How you get that in cleanly into your project and make sure you have what you need only. So thank you for all the questions, and we'll be at the kiosk.